Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the Lindsay Elmore Show. We are going to be talking about some inflammation topics as well as some detox topics and metabolism topics. We're going to be talking about some molecules that you may have never heard about before. We're going to be talking about NF-kappa B and how bad it is for us. And we're going to be talking about sulforaphane and how amazing it can be for us as a supplement. My guest today is David Roberts. He is the co-founder of Mara Labs and is a pioneer in sulforaphane supplementation and cellular health. And today we are going to be talking all about sulforaphane and how it can unlock brain, metabolic, and immune resilience. This is going to be a great interview because we are going to learn about optimizing brain, metabolic, and immune function with a supplement that you may have never heard of. This is the Lindsay Elmore Show. David Roberts, welcome to the Lindsay Elmore Show.
Lindsay, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited to get to talk to you today about your investigations with sulforaphane and the master molecule for health and why you have spent so much of your career digging into it. So for listeners who are new to all of the science, what exactly is sulforaphane and why do you call it the master molecule for health?
Yeah, so sulforaphane is the basically the good molecule that's derived from broccoli or broccoli sprouts. It's why people grow broccoli sprouts or buy them at the store. And so in a head of broccoli, basically, there's the precursor molecule called glyphosate, and you start chewing the broccoli, you break the cell wall down, it releases an enzyme that converts that glyphosate into the sulforaphane, and then you basically swallow it, you get the benefit. But the issue comes when like you try to harness that and store it. The sulforaphane is not stable, so it degrades. So what we've done is we basically made a way to stabilize it that's natural. And so that's important because of all the good benefits that come with the molecule. And so things like it turns on over 200 different antioxidants and something called the antioxidant response element. It is great for, it's the best natural molecule for phase 2 detoxification, but it works in all three phases. And then we also talk about basically how it turns on BDNF, brain derived nootropic factor, which is at the center of brain health. And because it protects existing neurons, but it also helps grow new neurons. And so there's a lot there. There's over 37 pro-health mechanisms for sulforaphane, but yeah, it's a great molecule.
Yes. Okay. So BDNF is a molecule that we really haven't talked about on the show that much. So how does sulforaphane affect BDNF, and what is the benefits to somebody who's using this broccoli derived molecule?
Yeah, and so the BDNF again is upregulated by sulforaphane, and another way you can upregulate BDNF is through exercise. And so basically, if you look at the different impacts, you let's say in PubMed, you type in BDNF, you'll in brain, you'll get a lot of studies on how it is impactful and helps in different disease states like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, just different types of dementia. And so it's very important for brain health. It's really at the center of brain health. And it's interesting, we have with our product, broccoli, we have an unconditional money back guarantee. So early on, we're a startup, everybody does everything. I'm doing customer service. And so this guy's like, I want my money back. It doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, no, that's fine. But let me ask you, did you have any vivid dreams? And he's like, no way. That's this? He's like, yes, I've been having incredibly vivid dreams. So that's kind of the neuroplasticity effect of the BDNF and the sulforaphane turning on that system.
So interesting. Why does it affect our dreams? Like, how does this relate to each other?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm not a dream expert, though I guess I should be at this stage. But when you're trying to process information, there's and kind of come to grips with it. That's what the dreaming aspect does. I think it has to do with the different stages of sleep too. I know that broccoli helps both with the deeper sleep and getting more of that, which is more the physically restorative sleep, but also the dreaming side is the REM. And so, similar like nootropics have sort of that brain enhancing effect. I know like another one would be a lion's mane. But yeah, basically, I don't know all the specifics of that, but I think it has to do with the processing and helping build neurons, the processing information, and the enhancement of the REM side of sleep.
Interesting. So you talked about a moment ago how the delivery of sulforaphane is so difficult. And so stabilization of a product is going to be important, it would sound like. So talk to us about the stabilization process and why that is so important.
So yeah, I mean, to back up, a bit of my story was we got interested in sulforaphane after my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she ended up we ended up growing her cancer cells in our lab, and we put 60 different types of supplements on them to see what specifically killed her type of cancer, and sulforaphane was number 3 in directly killing her type of cancer. So when I went out to buy it, what I found was something called sulforaphane glucosylate, which is technically the precursor of sulforaphane. And so it's not sulforaphane, which is a little bit deceptive. It's a little bit confusing. And I think different supplement companies do that purposefully because they want people to think it's sulforaphane. But glucoraphanin is the precursor. And so that's stable. And so it's also why, the stabilization aspect is why so many people, we ended up growing broccoli sprouts. I had like a broccoli sprout farm, enough for like 10 families, because we would juice it every day and she drink the juice, and it just, it was a production. But you can do it that way because it's stable in the sprouts. And then when you masticate it, when you juice it, there's the enzymatic reaction. And so
talk to us about the process of actually using the product.
Sure. So yeah, basically we recommend, 2 capsules in each capsule, there's the equivalent of 2.5 pounds of mature broccoli. And so the amount of, glucoraphanin, what we do is we do the enzymatic reaction, and it's already done. And so the sulforaphane is in the capsule. Each capsule has 5 milligrams of stable sulforaphane. But what's more is it has all of the other cousin molecules that come from the seed. And then we add one that from watercress. It's called phenethyl isothiocyanate. The name's not important, but what is important is adding.
Well, the name nobody can say except for you. So I'm glad it's not important to us,
Just think the cousin molecule from watercress. We add that because of what it does it works synergistically. So 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. That's additive. 1 + 1 = 5. And so and that synergistic effect, it has to do with the NRF2 system, which is why it's where the magic lies with this master molecule sulforaphane, and it turns it on that much more, and so you get a really, really, really strong effect. That's the plus, and we call it broccoli plus.
So we haven't talked about NRF2 on the podcast, I don't think, ever. So talk to us about what this pathway is and how it impacts detoxification and cellular protection.
Sure. So it's a transcription factor. And so basically, what happens is it's outside of it's in the cell, outside of the nucleus of the cell. And when you ingest sulforaphane and it gets into the cell, it actually it has this reaction that releases the NRF2 to go into the cell. And once it goes into the cell, the NRF2 interacts with, it interacts in the nucleus, like I was talking about before. It turns on over 200 different genes to begin cranking out these antioxidants. That's called the antioxidant response element, and that's important just to drill down on that a little bit. If like with one antioxidant like vitamin C, it combines with a pro-oxidant, and it cancels out, and that antioxidant's gone, right? With sulforaphane, it itself is not an antioxidant, but it turns on over 200 different antioxidants that stay on for over 72 hours. And so it just keeps cranking them. It keeps cranking them out. I was camping, backpack camping with my youngest son, and we ended up going, it was in Colorado. It was supposed to be dry. And I took them out of the bottle, the broccoli out of the bottle, put them in a baggie. Didn't have a desiccant. And I woke up and they had gotten moist somehow. And so that moisture actually you can tell that it oxidizes, it basically reacts, and it's no good. And so it was a 4-day trip. And so the first 3 days I was fine, because the system's still turned on from my last dose. But that fourth day I was like, oh, I can start feeling, that it's running up. So it's great that it turns on and stays on. Now with phase 2 detoxification, there are 3 phases of detox. So first is making the toxin less toxic. The second is making it water soluble, so it goes into the plasma. And then the third is kind of binding and excretion. And so it is actually, sulforaphane is the best natural molecule at phase 2 detox. And so that's actually important, because if you, maybe some of the listeners have, maybe you haven't, but you may have heard of people doing a detox program and getting sick, kind of getting what I call the detox flu. And that's because all of a sudden you're having all these toxins mobilized in your body and you can't get rid of them. And so what actually sulforaphane does is it downregulates the amount of the toxins that actually get into the plasma. And so that you can actually, it's a balanced detoxification. So you don't get that same sickness. And so that's, I kind of joke, but I actually do this, at holiday parties. I'll go and people know what I do, and a lot of people take broccoli, but I'll always bring a couple bottles so people who end up, drinking alcohol can take some, and they won't have that same sickness feeling, yucky feeling the next day, because the detox system is really affected and turned on. So the NRF2, there's a couple things that it does. We've all probably heard of glutathione, which is sort of it is an actual antioxidant, the master antioxidant. And so again, similarly, sulforaphane does not, it actually turns the glutathione production on. And so it's sort of it partners in that way. So what we often do is, there's one of our favorite studies is on, and actually it's 2 studies now, they repeated it, but they looked, in this study, they looked at I think people in their 70s. And what they did was basically they combined glycine and NAC and gave them these megadoses. It was like 20 grams or something like that. And they did it over a period of a month and showed that these people in their 70s, all they did sort of age markers before, age markers after, and a lot of the age markers had reversed. And the reason for that is that the glycine and NAC are the building blocks of glutathione. And so, I'll take some of those, not 20 grams, but I'll take a couple grams of that combination along with sulforaphane, and so basically you're turning on the glutathione production, and you have the basic building blocks to create the glutathione, so it works rather well.
And you've also combined curcumin in your products. And why do you think sulforaphane and curcumin work so well together?
So it goes back to, it's actually the same study where we read and saw the cousin molecule from watercress works in synergy. In that same study, they looked at curcumin working in synergy with sulforaphane as well. And again, it has a 3 to 5 times impact on just everything. And so they work really well together. We sell them in a bundle because of that. We call it the anti-inflammation bundle. So curcumin is the best natural molecule at turning off the pro-inflammatory pathway NF-kappa B. NF-kappa B is the holy grail that the pharmaceutical companies are going after when they're creating an anti-inflammatory drug. And so what we've shown, we've also looked at synergistic effects internally through our own study. We have a full lab here in our building, and so we can look at synergistic effects of different molecules. But yeah, basically we combine them because curcumin has actually, most curcumin, less than 1% of the curcumin gets through the gut barrier. And so you can take regular curcumin or turmeric or whatever, and it really helps your gut, the cells in your gut lining, which is important since about 60% or 70% of our immune system is in our gut, right? Don't want an inflamed gut, but it's really not going to impact the pain in your knee. And so with ours, we actually came up with a novel carrier molecule where we combine a plant-based protein with a sea-based carbohydrate, and it's its own molecule. And then we add the curcumin to that. And it's basically like, I like to think of it as like smuggling. It smuggles the curcumin past the gut barrier, and it gets into your plasma, into your cells in a way that makes a biological difference. So we've tested a lot of different curcumin products, and the vast majority do not make they don't move the needle on the NF-kappa B or IL-6, which is another pro-inflammatory marker, whereas ours does.
So for our super science nerds out there, what are give us we've got NF-kappa B, we've got BDNF, we've got all these different, buzzwords and all these different names going around. Give us a list, because one of the things that I'm picking up is that the sulforaphane has some wide-ranging effects because it acts on many different molecules. And so what are kind of the top 3 molecules that are going to get impacted for our listeners who really want to dig in and do some more research into the basic science? What can they look at?
Yeah, while I said curcumin is the best natural molecule at turning on or turning off the NF-kappa B, sulforaphane does too, and it does it really, really well. And it does it so well that we actually did our own internal study because, early on, we started taking it and we were noticing our aches and pains going away pretty much within the first dose. I actually enjoy playing the guitar. I'm not very good at it, but when my wife was sick, I could only play a couple minutes because my hands were like in a lot of pain. There's a lot of inflammation there. And, once we created, the capsules and or started taking them, that pain went away really quickly. And most, our friends and family were like, this is working really quickly. And so we're like, how quick is it working? And so we did a internal study of some employees, friends and family, where we looked at IL-6, which is interleukin-6. It was kind of, you may have heard about that during COVID times, but it's a pro-inflammatory marker. And so we showed that it decreases IL-6, just one dose, so 10 milligrams, decreases IL-6 28% in 24 hours. So that's enough so that you could actually feel the difference. So NF-kappa B is downstream from IL-6. They're interrelated. They're both pro-inflammatory markers. So I'd say NF-kappa B is a big one. NRF2, which we've explained, the transcription factor is probably, in terms of sulforaphane, is the biggest one. BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, it's so important for brain that has to be on the list. And then I would say
That's 4. I asked for 3 to 5.
Okay.
So you're perfect. You did it great. You hit it right on the nail. So what the things
I threaded the needle.
Yes, exactly. So a lot of people, we've talked about detox, and I do want to talk about metabolism and inflammation before we end. But detox is such a kind of buzzword, but a lot of people just talk about it. You know what I mean? And you mentioned earlier that some people do detoxifications and they get sick because they don't do it well. So as far as the people that are thinking about this as just detox is just a buzzword for me to use, what are some of the misconceptions that you think that people have when they try to detox and supplement?
I feel like there's what I call the different health and wellness gurus, and I feel like everybody and their brother, if they have like a supplement offering, they will have something in terms of detox. So before I started Mora Labs and Broccoli, we ended up getting a few different detox programs, and they come in a big box, and it seems nice, and there's teas and there's capsules, but most of them focus on phase 1 because that's really the easiest way. That's the easiest one to focus, and that's the phase 1 when you are kind of beginning to mobilize these toxins into your system. You want to limit that. And so it's important. That's why, people get sick, is if they overdo that step, they don't feel well. I think, as far as misconceptions, I would just be very skeptical about a detox program. I think there are good ones. We write about detox on our blog. People at mora-labs.com can go there. But really, you just want to be careful. And you want to make sure you're covering all 3 phases of detox. I will say, we live in a toxic world. We just actually learned a couple weeks ago, this guy did a study he's from Samford, not Stanford, but Samford University. And
I used to work there.
He looked at mobilizing microplastics. And so if you eat an apple, you're getting a million microplastics because of the covering that's on the apple. Bottled water, hundreds of thousands of microplastics, or plastic bottles. I just learned on the drive over to do the podcast that actually glass bottled water has like 10 times more microplastics than plastic bottled water because of the lid.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because of the lid?
Because of the lid. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right.
And so I don't have a reference for that, but I will. But all to say is, we ingest the amount is kind of staggering. The amount of microplastics create basically a credit card. The amount of microplastics we ingest in 1 year period. And so mobilizing those, getting them out is important. This guy showed that by taking broccoli, you actually mobilize the microplastics into your system to begin the excretion. And so that's the first study of its kind. Microplastics is toxin, it messes with, hormones and all sorts of things, but that's just one toxin. There's tens of thousands of toxins, if you just look at your sunscreen, or maybe not your sunscreen because you probably have good sunscreen, but toothpaste, our cleaners, our soaps, everything is just, if you can't, if you don't know if you have trouble pronouncing it, the rule of thumb is like, it may not be good for you,
Yeah, right.
And so those are chemicals our bodies have to, we have to process. And as another aside, have you heard of glyphosate?
Oh, yes.
Glyphosate, for those listening, basically the active ingredient in Roundup. And we showed that just by the amount of glyphosate and that kind of a regular, it's basically the highest level you can get, but it's in a regular meal, and it can reduce your NRF2, which is your ability to detox, by 30%. And so that's basic. That sounds like, okay, well, you still have 70%, but that's like any
major
decrease. It's major.
Yes.
You can get really, really sick if that is continuously insulted. And so what we showed is broccoli actually reverses that glyphosate's ability to turn off that NRF2. And so that's huge in detox, because we think about detox with liver, yes, but every cell in our bodies has the ability to detox. And so, whereas sulforaphane is sort of a master molecule, glyphosate, I call it the master toxin, because it makes every other toxin that much more toxic, because it reduces the body's ability to detox.
Well, and that is also has so many environmental effects that have to be noted as well.
Yes, it's just on and on and on, right?
It goes on and on. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so pervasive, this chemical, and we kind of put it everywhere before we knew we were doing it. And now we look back on it and go, what were we doing? It's the same thing with all of the PFCs and PFBs that we put into water, that we just kind of put them there. And then now we realize it had major effects.
Sure. Yeah. And, that's where, I'm big on not eating genetically modified foods. It's because the genetic modification is to receive the Roundup and not kill it. And so corn, soy are the two biggies. And so, but those are basically high fructose corn syrup and vegetable oil or soybean oil it's almost in every processed food. And so just read your label and avoid that, because there's not a lot. It's actually not a lot in any processed food. But the issue is there's a bioaccumulation, because it's in everything. You're just kind of continually getting it and getting it and getting it. And over months and years, really, it makes a big impact.
So let's transition in our last few minutes that we have here and talk about metabolism. We've talked a lot about detoxification, but when I talk about metabolism, I'm actually, in this situation, I'm talking about belly fat, inflammation, insulin resistance. How does sulforaphane play a role in metabolic health?
There are probably a decent amount of listeners or women over 40. And so with if you think about estrogen, there are good estrogens, bad estrogens, and metabolically balancing them, there's an interplay between metabolism and the detox. So basically, because sulforaphane is so good at detoxification, it can remove the bad estrogens and help they basically balance the good. And so you actually, and that's important, for a lot of reasons in women's health. And so in terms of metabolism, like we have a decent number of people who take sulforaphane for performance. So our bodies, the sort of the mitochondria is part of the cell that is sort of the energy production part, and it's the center of where kind of glucose, which is like money in the bank, turns into ATP, which is the usable form of energy. It's like cash money, and so and that's important because the sulforaphane actually can stimulate that system. It's called the Krebs cycle. It's why we breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. So my boys are swimmers, and so I'll give them sulforaphane, a few other things before if their competitions, and it's natural. It's all natural, but you're revving up that system in terms of and that can impact that can as that system is revved up, that can impact belly fat. And it just turns on a lot of good things, including, like we talked about before, the antioxidant response element. But we have another product as well that is excellent at something called turning on AMP kinase, which is the master metabolic molecule. And so we call it's a GLP-1 alternative called GeoPerfect. And basically what that does is it has EGCG from green tea, and it has berberine, and then it has alpha lipoic acid. Well, alpha lipoic acid and berberine are two molecules that really turn on this AMP kinase. So if you think about metabolic disorder, people who have belly fat, they're puffy in the face, they have insulin, low insulin, high glucose, they probably have cardiovascular issues and high triglycerides. That AMP kinase, it's almost like a fasting. It just revs up the metabolism. And so it helps decrease triglycerides. It helps improve the insulin, to get the glucose into the cells. It helps decrease blood glucose. And so it goes the opposite way of metabolic disorder. So those two molecules are exceptionally good at metabolism as well.
I love all of the different things that this molecule can do. Listeners, if you want to learn more about broccoli and how you can get this sulforaphane product, head to www.mara-labs. That's mara-labs.com/Lindsay. That will save you up to 28% off of broccoli and other Mara Lab products as a special gift for all of our listeners today. David, it has been a fabulous interview with you. Thank you so much for coming in and being a guest on the Lindsay Elmore Show.
Lindsay, thanks so much for having me. It's been wonderful to talk to you. Thank you.